Hi guys, and welcome back to Danny Random. I'm Danny, and in this episode we will go through the Second Age of Middle-earth. So, the Second Age of Middle-earth started with the rise of Numenor. Numenor was raised by Eru Ilúvatar as a gift from the Valar to a Dain, as a reward for standing with the Elves against Morgoth. During the following years, the Dain moved to Numenor and established what should be known as Kingdom of Numenor. The Valar had one rule though, and that was to never set sail west out of sight of the island. This was known as the Ban of the Valar. This was because the land to the west of Numenor was the land of the Undying, or the land of the Immortals. The Numenorians held their part of the bargain and sailed south and east instead, into Middle-earth. And speaking of Middle-earth, maybe you're all wondering, where's Sauron in all this? Well, Sauron was pretty quiet during the first millennia of the Second Age, but sometime around 1000 years into the Second Age, Sauron began to build Barad-dûr. And during the next 500 years or so, Sauron crafted the Rings of Power. Or rather, Celebrimbor did, but with advice from Sauron. Sauron also crafted a ring for himself, a ring to control the other rings, the one ring to rule them all. And the whole idea of creating the rings was for Sauron to control all the races in Middle-earth. To succeed with his plan, Sauron disguised himself and became known by the elves as the Giver. But his plan wasn't 100% successful, as the dwarves were almost immune to the rings. They just became more greedy and grew more hungry for riches. And the three elf lords sensed Sauron's presence as soon as he put on his own ring and took counteractive actions. And even though Sauron's plan wasn't as successful as planned, he still managed to give 9 rings to the race of men, who later became the Ringwraiths, or Nazgûl. Sauron made his presence known about 1500 years into the Second Age and declared war against Middle-earth. By this time, he appeared as a charismatic human being, and not in the evil-looking form we all recognize. Since the elves were his biggest concern at the time, he focused his power against them and pushed them back. The elves and Gil-galad sought help from the Numenorians. Gil-galad was the High King of the Elves, or rather, Noldor to be more precise. In other words, he was the king of Celebrimbor, Elrond, and also Galadriel. The Numenorians decided to help out. They defeated Sauron, who was pushed back, and went into hiding for another 1500 years. During this time, Sauron established the Cult of Morgoth, which was like a satanic religion throughout Middle-earth. Sauron was by this time determined to not only destroy the elves, but now he wanted to destroy the Numenorians as well. During this time, the Numenorians went through some slight changes. The elves had suffered heavy losses during the war against Sauron, and became weary of life in Middle-earth, and moved back to Valinor in the west. This led to their influence over Numenor to falter. At first, the Elven tongue, or the Elven language, was banned in Numenor. Then, the elves were banned from the island, though some Numenorians remained faithful to the elves. Now, the main opponent for the Numenorians was once again Sauron. Ar-Pharazôn, the last king of Numenor, sent a big force to break Sauron's forces and take Sauron prisoner. And Sauron, who was one step ahead of Ar-Pharazôn, was gladly captured by the Numenorians. During his time being captured, Sauron persuaded and corrupted Ar-Pharazôn, and most of the Numenorians as well, that the immortality of Valinor's inhabitants comes from the island. This led Ar-Pharazôn to rebel against the Ban of Valar and ordered the construction of a massive fleet called the Great Armament, to take his army over the seas and to wage war against Valinor and the Valar. The construction of the Great Armament took about 9 years to complete. When the construction was finished, the Great Armament, led by Ar-Pharazôn, set sail to the west and entered the Forbidden Realm. The fleet was then destroyed by Ilúvatar, who literally made mountains and dropped them from the sky, crushing the Armada. Ilúvatar also changed the shape of Arda from flat to round, so that no mortal could reach the far west ever again. The reshape of Arda had Numenor covered in great waves and storms, and sank it into the abyss, killing all the inhabitants, including the body of Sauron, though the spirit of Sauron made its way back to Mordor. Now, every Numenorian was eliminated, except for a handful of Numenorians who were loyal to the Elves and the Valar, that resisted Sauron's corruption. These Numenorians sailed east instead, and into Middle-earth. This group was led by Elendil and his 2 sons, Isildur and Anarion. And as we know, Aragorn is Isildur's heir, and that makes Aragorn a man with Numenorian roots. But let's get back to the story. By this time, the Numenorians were almost fully eliminated, and the majority of the elves had moved back to Valinor. Sauron felt that this was the right time to take new actions and launched a new invasion upon Middle-earth. This invasion was the beginning of the end of the Second Age, and the final battle against Sauron. This battle is better known as the Lost Alliance of Elves and Men. Notable characters that was part of the Lost Alliance is Elendil, King of Men and father of Isildur and Anarion, Gil-galad, who were the King of Elves, Elrond, Thranduil, who were Legolas' father, Isildur, and Anarion. Elendil and Gil-galad both died during the final battle. Isildur, son of Elendil, took his father's broken sword and cut off the One Ring from Sauron's hand, and in that way defeated Sauron. Isildur decided to keep the ring as an heirloom, and in that way Sauron's spirit survived and went back to Mordor, where he waited until the Third Age. And this makes the end of the Second Age that spanned over 3,441 years, and also marks the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and more Lord of the Rings videos will be uploaded to keep us hyped until the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon airs. But until next time, take care.